So I've been using the Apple Watch for over a month and I didn't rush a review because with a wearable, I think you need time to readjust yourself and your life a little bit around the new device. Now I believe I've spent enough time with it to come up with a verdict. Welcome back to Byte Review. Let's take a closer look at the Apple Watch Series 1. In my opinion, the Apple Watch is the best looking smartwatch out there. It has this wonderful precision to it. The build is modern and tight, the digital crown is beautifully milled, the display is super crisp and inky black, and even markings on the underside are smart and considered. Everything down to the strap removal has a perfect feeling of synchronicity to it. This is Apple's design at its finest, and it's truly a pleasure to behold. It does have a square face which might divide some round diehards, but for a digital watch, which is what this is at the core, a square face makes a lot of sense. Let's not get too bogged down with looks though. It's the software that separates the Apple Watch from the other offerings out there. As of review time, the Apple Watch Series 1 is running watchOS 3.1, which is combined with a new dual-core processor. Apps now run a lot faster thanks to a combination of both these things. I very rarely saw any loading screen while flying through apps, nor did I ever feel like I was waiting around for the watch to react to my inputs, which was a great improvement over the first generation. If you're new to the watch, there's actually a lot of new ways to interact with it, and they might not all be totally obvious when looking at it. First and foremost, there's the digital crown, the beautifully milled knob on the side of the watch which acts as a way of scrolling up and down in apps, and also in and out. It also doubles up as a home button too, and a long press will bring up Siri. Then there's Force Touch, which isn't anything new now, but is used by pressing harder to access deeper menus or to clear all of your notifications at once. There's another button too, underneath the digital crown. A single press gets you to your recent apps menu, which also doubles up as a dock, allowing you to quick access your favourite apps. But the button's main feature is the double tap, which brings you straight into Apple Pay. Apple Pay was one of the things I was most excited about while wearing the watch, and aside from a horribly stupid drink spill while paying, it went pretty smoothly paying for things. Well, that was until the cold weather settled in, which somewhat ruined the experience. Now, stay with me on this one. There's no doubt that having Apple Pay on your wrist is super useful, and there's nothing more futuristic than paying for something by tapping my watch. But in the cold winter weather, actually rolling up your coat sleeves or jumper is actually more time consuming than taking your phone out of your pocket or your bag, especially if you need to be quick like on the London Underground. So for most of my Apple Pay stops, I ended up just using my phone. Anyway, notifications are handled quite well by the Apple Watch. There's a lot of supported apps which have quick reply features which can be super useful if you just need to confirm something, say OK, or even to mark an email as read. I like being able to reply using Scribble, which allows you to literally write a reply, but it's not good for a lengthy text. Then there's Siri, which is about as useful as it is on the watch as it is on the phone, which is to say if you use Siri, you'll love it. If not, you'll most likely forget it's there. Some will enjoy access right on the wrist, but for me, other than dictating a reply or setting a timer on occasion, I personally don't find much use of Siri. When you do get notified, Apple employs the Taptic Engine, which is a much more elegant way of notifying you than a classic vibrate. It really does feel like someone tapping on your wrist. Initially, you might find it confusing if you should check your watch or your phone when you feel a tap, but you do adapt quickly. The iPhone app allows you to decide what comes to your watch as well, and there is quite a huge array of options. However, the Apple Watch isn't going to solve your notification problems. If you check your phone a lot, you still will, and that's something you'll probably have to change yourself. You'll most likely find yourself checking the watch, then your phone for the first few weeks, until you get a better handle on things. On a side note, if you want to use the watch for phone calls, you can, but the speaker is pretty quiet, so don't expect to be able to use it in a loud environment. Plus, speaking into your wrist, well, it's not a great look. There was a bigger focus on sport this time round from Apple, and if you're into sport and have an interest in tracking it, the Apple Watch is a great companion. It has a great selection of activities to choose from, and the heart rate tracking is actually really consistent. A main feature, which is worth having on regardless if you're into fitness or not, is the daily activity rings. These act as a small, low pressure way to make sure you're getting enough exercise or standing up enough each day. They're unobtrusive enough to be totally ignored if you want, but addictive enough to become part of your daily routine. I found myself trying to get the rings filled pretty much every day. However, if you are serious about sport, then take a look at the Series 2, which includes waterproofing and GPS, things that are absent here in the Series 1. Battery life has been really good for me. I can get through a day of the Apple Watch with no issue at all, and even if I don't charge it that evening, I can pretty safely make it through the next day too. Now that would change if you're tracking your fitness or sleep every day, but for me the battery has been totally solid. When it does come to charging, the watch snaps onto its wireless charger nice and easily and can get fully juiced in about an hour and a half. But despite everything the Apple Watch has going for it, I can't recommend one. There were times when the watch infuriated me, and each one of those times it made the whole thing fall apart. This is down to two things. One, the lack of an always-on display, and two, the sensor to activate the watch when you turn your wrist. Now don't get me wrong, 9.5 times out of 10 the wrist activated screen worked perfectly, but when it doesn't it can be utterly frustrating to have to really pronounce raising the watch to make it activate, and by the time you've done that, you may as well have checked your phone or checked the room for a clock. If there's one thing the watch should be perfect at, it's being a watch. I genuinely believe this could be solved by having a low power always on option, which could use the OLED technology within the watch to display a tiny dim watch face. In a similar vein to Samsung's always on display for the S7 series. I understand battery life might take a small hit, but I believe it would be worth the sacrifice. As a watch wearer anyway, I'm always having a quick glance at my wrist, and when I'm greeted by a blank screen instead of the time, it makes my blood boil. So for me, the Apple Watch still hasn't found its niche, its killer app, or that sheer desire that the iPhone captured all those years ago. It's a good accessory, and maybe for now it should be treated as one. So let's round off. On the plus side, the Apple Watch has beautiful industrial design, an excellent screen, and really good sport tracking. But on the flip side, there's no always on option, there's no killer app as such, and the speaker is too quiet. Thanks for checking out this review guys. If you've enjoyed it, then do drop a like, and I will hopefully see you all in the next one.